Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
Education plays a critical role in Louisiana's economy. Education at all levels exists primarily to prepare individuals to participate successfully in that economy. John White, Louisiana Superintendent of Education, joins us when we return on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Since 1919, we've designed and constructed hundreds of industrial plants, roads, ships, dams, and executed some of the most complex jobs in the world. In fact, our quality and dependability are legendary. Today, the legend continues as Brown & Root delivers engineering, construction, maintenance, and industrial specialty services throughout the U.S. and the world from our headquarters here in Louisiana. We are Brown & Root.
Passion, experience, safety. These are what set Arkell Constructors apart as a premier general contractor. At Arkell Constructors, our goal is to exceed our clients' expectations, whether it's commercial, industrial, or facility maintenance. We have the team and processes in place to provide a solution for you. To us, every project is a resume for our future. Arkell Constructors, the solution for your next building project.
For over a quarter century, Kelly's has operated with honesty, integrity, and above all, safety. Kelly's features a fleet of quality equipment operated by dedicated, safety-minded employees skilled in land clearing, above-ground right-of-way maintenance, vegetation control, station yard and manned facility maintenance, above-ground pipeline support, and more. Kelly's Industrial Services, where pipeline right-of-way maintenance gets done right.
Consumers and property owners with construction projects can have a successful result or regretful experiences that could have been avoided. Before any construction project, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers will claim to be insured or bonded, so always check first. Download our app, LA Contractor, from the Android or Apple Store. Visit our website, lacontractor.org, or contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. We're here to help before things go wrong. Hire a licensed contractor. It's the law.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Very pleased to be joined by State Superintendent of Education, John White. John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again, Tim.
Big picture overview of the current status. We're going to talk about student achievement progress, but let's talk about the current status of public education in Louisiana. Students, teachers, it is a large business enterprise that you are responsible for. Talk about that.
It's a many billion-dollar enterprise that those of us in government and those of us in the education industry are responsible for. And I have to say, by any conventional measure, and I know we'll talk about this, but the school system in Louisiana is moving in the right direction. And that's not according to my opinion or anyone else's. That's the hard fact of the life opportunities that are being gained by young people, and particularly young adults in our state. And that's great news. You know, at the same time, it doesn't mean that we should take our foot off the gas. We are by no means even at average in this country, much less above average, and we've got a long ways to go, many challenges to overcome. But the good news is, what we've proven is that when you put your shoulder to the grind, you can get it done for the kids of this state.
You know, there is something to be said for setting standards and having high expectations and having young people respond. If we set mediocre standards, we get mediocre results, and we're raising the bar. Now, you and I were talking briefly before we started taping today, and you're right. By every objective measure, we are seeing improvement. So talk specifically about that improvement, some of those measures, about school improvement, about student performance improvement. What do the statistics tell us?
Let's just start with the most basic of tasks, and that is graduating kids from high school. Louisiana's high school graduation rate right now is at an all-time high. We saw a 3 percentage point increase this year. Now we're up to 77.5% of Louisiana's high school kids graduate in 4 years. But then look at the skills underneath that. Louisiana is the fastest improved state in the nation on the National Assessment of Education Progress in 4th grade reading, second fastest in math. Fastest improved in the nation on the ACT, second fastest on advanced placement. And you know, people want to say, well, Louisiana's bottom of the barrel in education, and we've got a long, long ways to go. But understand that today, of the 7 southern states that use the ACT as their high school test, Louisiana is third. So Louisiana is not the bottom of the barrel on the gold standard assessment for college readiness in this country. Louisiana is moving upwards fast. We've got a long way to go, but there's no signs that momentum are slowing in our state.
Well, based on what I know about you and I know about your team, I don't think there's going to be any let up in terms of pushing for continued progress. You mentioned how our students compare to other states, but we truly are competing globally now, right? It's not good enough for our students to compete well or measure up well against Mississippi or Alabama or Texas anymore. We truly have to measure ourselves against global standards because our kids will compete in a global economy. You feel good about that progress as well?
I think we've embraced the idea that we can compete. I mean, look, every Saturday between September and December, we compete as a state. It's not about just did LSU play UL. It's about did LSU go here, go here, go here, and compete on a national playing field. And if we can do it in football, we should be able to do it in academics and in the life skills for our kids. And Tim, it's not just reading and writing. It's also saying we don't need some rinky-dink credential in this career path where we want NCCER construction credentials. We want AWS welding credentials. We want college credit. It's not just about, you know, did I pass this course or did I pass that course? It's can I take this advanced placement credit to any university in this country? That's how our kids should be able to feel about their achievements. They're as smart and they're as capable as any children in this country, and they deserve a benchmark that is as high as in any state in this country.
We're going to talk about the new Louisiana state standards a little bit later, but let's talk about that improvement. What do you point to as the 2 or 3 most critical factors that have led to this student achievement progress?
Well, at its essence, every kid is different, every school is different, every community is different, but there's 2 things that every child has in common when they walk into school one day. First, are there high expectations for that child? And second, is there an educator who's prepared to assist the child in achieving those high expectations? And if you have those 2 things, which is high expectations and a prepared educator, you're very, very likely to have a good school. And good schools lead to good outcomes for kids, and they deliver for families. We have taken strides as a state to assure our expectations at every grade level and every subject are as high as can be. And we've taken steps to prepare teachers. You know, we're going in a direction now where no longer is being prepared as a teacher just sitting in a classroom studying what it means to be a teacher, but now it's about, in Louisiana, a full year when you're a senior in college in the classroom as an intern or a resident, no different from a doctor or a nurse, where you're actually practicing your craft on the job, learning about what it means to be an effective teacher so that no more do we have people coming into our schools either underprepared or wondering whether or not they're effective. If they're not effective after 4 years of college, shame on us. That's why we've got them in the classroom being prepared. Those 2 things combined are the essence of a strong school system. High expectations, prepared teachers.
And I think we've seen it. We've got about 1.5 minutes left in this segment. So I wanted to ask you about this because I know it has an impact, and I don't think we talk about it maybe enough or maybe as much as we should. Now, you guys probably talk about it internally. What impact does the poverty rate in our state have on public education and the work that you do?
It has a huge impact. And anybody who's educating kids in America today, with its preponderance of single-parent homes, with the number of kids who are growing up not just poor but in a state of poverty, anybody who's done that would tell you it is no easier to educate kids today in 2016 than it was 20, 30 years ago. But the question is, what do you do with that? Some people say, well, that's a reason why we shouldn't have higher standards, why things should take longer, why change shouldn't occur. Other people say it is the reason that change should occur. Right. Because education, if things aren't going well at home, or if mom and dad don't have the money they need in the pocketbook, education is the thing that can help the child disrupt that cycle of multi-generational poverty. So we should never pretend that it doesn't have an impact on the classroom, but we must acknowledge that a good classroom is a great way of changing the cycle of poverty.
You and I have had this conversation before, but if we thought about how many kids start kindergarten or pre-K in this state and because of their situation have never had a book read to them, and to think that that wouldn't have a tremendous impact is not really, it's sort of silly to think that it wouldn't. We're going to take a break. We come back. I want to talk about these new Louisiana state standards, this replacement for the Common Core. We're visiting with John White. He's the Louisiana State Superintendent of Education, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
It might be one of the most efficient, most effective methods of communications we've ever used.
What if I said that the American dream is alive and well, and that it exists for anyone willing to build it? That the power of a nation does not reside in its monuments, but in the hearts and minds of those who built them, and that the country's greatest heroes also wear hard hats. In today's America, it's not enough to dream about the future. You have to build it. Build your future at byf.org.
For more than 25 years, the TJC Group has been helping industry communicate and build relationships with communities, elected officials, and governmental agencies. We are the leading firm in the U.S. for the development, management, and facilitation of industry-based community advisory panels.
Whether you're building a new facility or you manage an existing business, let us put our community and governmental relations experience to work for you.
The TJC Group, facilitating solutions for business and industry.
Spadel's Florist was founded over 30 years ago. From my mom's kitchen, we have grown into one of the largest florists in this area. There's a sense in our community that you stick together. Good times or bad. And oil and gas is part of that family. They're my neighbors. They're my customers. They're the person I'm sitting next to at church. If oil and gas is doing well, all of our businesses are doing well. We are Louisiana Oil and Gas.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. We're visiting with State Superintendent of Education John White. He's our guest. John, over the last couple of years, there nationally a lot of discussion back and forth about these new standards, these new national standards called the Common Core. A lot of political discourse in our state. Those standards have now been replaced. Volunteers, educators, business people spent over 9,000 hours developing new standards for our state. They're called the Louisiana State Student Standards. Talk about those standards, talk about their development, and talk about why you feel so good about this replacement for Common Core in Louisiana going forward.
Well, there was a lot of controversy. I mean, a lot of us read a lot of news articles and sat through a lot of difficult meetings, and it was for a variety of reasons. But one of those reasons that really spoke to me was the idea that we want control of the education policy and the decisions in our state. And who better to put that decision in the hands of than the people who live it every day, and that is the teachers of our state. And the legislature forged a compromise where 100 teachers stepped up to provide 9,000 volunteer hours, as you said, Tim, to review every single one of those standards and to say, is this right for what students in Louisiana need to learn in order to be assured that when they go on to community college, university, or the workplace, that they will be fully literate, that they'll be ready to compete in the 21st century economy. They developed those standards through multiple public meetings. They've been vetted by university experts, and they've been vetted by parents. And we've come to a point where we have two assurances. One, they're challenging. They're going to challenge our kids to achieve big things. But also, they remain competitive with other states. We'll be able to use those standards, even though they're unique to Louisiana, to say, our kids are doing this well, but how well are they doing relative to California? How well are they doing relative to Virginia or anywhere in between? In light of that, we can all take good faith that the work that the teachers did has resolved a real challenge in our state and probably has produced something better than we even started with.
You know, that's sort of the highlight of what I've seen over 30 years of following politics in this state is if you put smart people in a room, even if they disagree, that if they're willing to communicate, they can come to an effective resolution of that issue. And that's exactly what this represents. And you know, you speak with great passion about the professional educators in this state. You're pretty high on them, aren't you?
I think that what educators do every day is a daily act of heroism. And I don't say that about anybody in all professions or out of a sense of pandering. It's true. When you think about the energy level, the compassion, the sense of empathy, that an individual who comes into a classroom 180, 200 times a year stands there or sits there for 5, 6, 7 hours a day doing that. There is no more intense job. And then you think about the changes that not state government, but that the world has asked teachers to acclimate to over time. The new skills necessary in today's economy, the new demands for a competitive workforce, the new requirements to be admitted to higher education. And you think about how you package that into a lesson and a daily vocation. You have to have nothing short of admiration for teachers. And if we've had any successes in our state's education system in recent years, it hasn't been because of some brilliant policy. It's been because of them.
Those guys have really gone to work, and it has made a difference. And you said it in the first segment. Show me an effective educator, an effective professional in that classroom, and I'll generally show you some learning that's going on. One of the things I read as I was preparing for the show that I thought was very interesting is this fact that over the years now since Katrina, the city of New Orleans and the school system in Orleans Parish is almost exclusively a charter school system at this point. Talk about that. Talk about the improvement that's been seen there. I know that there's some work maybe for the school board in Orleans Parish to reassume some responsibility or more responsibility for those schools. But talk about New Orleans as a laboratory for school improvement.
A charter school, and I'm supportive of high-quality charter schools. I'm supportive of high-quality private schools, high-quality district schools. Charter schools is just one way of getting to success. And what it says is it's going to be a public school, open admission, but it's going to be run by a nonprofit organization rather than by a local school board. And in New Orleans, there's been a choice since after Katrina to move toward a system that is more overseen by nonprofit boards than by the traditional public school system there. And that has produced good things. In New Orleans, every parent has a choice of all public schools in the system, and they can apply to any school in that system. Schools are accountable to contracts that they hold directly with the state or directly with the local school board, but they're run independently. And what that means is a choice where educators run the schools and parents choose the schools. And I think that's a common sense formula for success. 20% is the graduation increase in the time since Katrina.
20%?
20%. A full 2 points growth on the ACT, which is a tremendous leap forward for the average ACT score. But most telling, when Katrina happened, New Orleans was the second from the bottom school system in the state, the bottom of the bottom, the 99th percentile. Well, today, New Orleans is not near the top. It's got a long, long ways to go. But in our state, it's nearing the 50th percentile. So even in comparison with its peers, whatever has changed in the state's measurement system, even when compared with its peers, it's moving up. That means that it's time to bring that phase in the process to a close. And the Orleans Parish School Board, which is the local school board, they're going to keep the charter schools. They're going to keep the system where parents can enroll in any school. But now they're going to be the ones who hold that contract with these charter schools, with these nonprofit corporations, to be the oversight. And that's as it should be. That's what the process was intended to have happen after Katrina, when the state intervened.
So the Recovery School District came in at that point, which is a state operation basically, made the contracts with a lot of these providers that created these charter schools. And now, quite simply, what's happening is that those schools and the management of those contracts is going back over to the Orleans Parish School Board, and you believe that's a good thing?
That's success. I mean, it's called the Recovery School District for a reason. It's not called the state takeover and stay there forever school system. Right. It's called the Recovery School District. And recovery wasn't about Katrina. Recovery was about letting the schools recover. Remember that there you're talking about multiple generations of educational neglect. And that's not unique to New Orleans. That's happened in other cities in this country and other cities in this state. And other cities are taking their turnaround efforts in a different direction. But in New Orleans, that's the one they chose. It has not been perfect, but by most measurable outcomes, it has worked, and now it's time to end that phase of the process so they can make further gains for their kids.
It'll be interesting to continue to watch. Let's take a break. I want to come back and talk about the reinvention of career and technical education in Louisiana as well. We're visiting with John White. He's the Louisiana State Superintendent of Education, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Promoting workplace safety and family wellness. That's our motto at Gulf Coast Occupational Medicine. The Gulf Coast staff is made up of some of the most knowledgeable and hardest working medical professionals in Louisiana. We care about your safety and your bottom line. With 8 convenient locations in the greater Baton Rouge area, our services include injury management, physical exams, medical surveillance, and substance abuse testing. For more information, visit us on the web at gcombr.info and ride the wave to safety.
For more than 20 years, the TJC Group has been helping companies assess their training needs and to develop programs that improve the effectiveness and productivity of their teams.
Training doesn't have to be expensive or complicated. Let us put our experience and expertise to work for you.
The TJC Group, facilitating solutions for business and industry.
What if I said that whatever good things you build you? And that in this economy, sweat never loses its value? What if I said that there isn't a challenge in the world too great for a craft professional with the right tools? And that the steps that lead from where you are to where you want to be can only be built by you? Build your future at byf.org.
Keene Miller traces its roots to the dawn of the petrochemical industry in Louisiana. As the legal needs of the sector grew, our firm emerged as a leader in environmental law, economic development, real estate, employment, utilities regulations, and more. Today, these same clients and those new to our state continue to rely upon the firm and its attorneys for creative ideas, practical advice, and Louisiana know-how. Industrial strength law. Learn more at KeeneMiller.com.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. John White, Louisiana State Superintendent of Education, is our guest. John, you guys have worked very hard to reinvent career and technical education in our state. I don't think many people are aware of the national statistics that say only about 30% of the jobs that exist in the U.S. economy require a 4-year college degree. And so this culture that says we can only be truly successful if that's where we get our ultimate training is really being changed, and specifically being changed in Louisiana. Now, that's not to say we don't want to encourage our children to go to the university, but we have to have this recognition that there are other really good careers out there, and Jumpstart, the program in Louisiana to reinvent career and technical education, is a recognition of that. Give our audience a quick primer on Jumpstart, and then tell us what the results have been.
You're right, Tim. There has been a stigma against career and technical education. It's been perpetuated for 2 generations. And there were good reasons for that. In a way, we don't want to create dumping grounds for those kids where they can never get a college education. But having that stigma has denied economic opportunity to tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Louisiana graduates. We need to have a job or college admission for every single graduate of Louisiana's high schools. And that means you have to provide multiple pathways to prosperity. The 4 university, you go to Southern, you go to LSU, you go to UL, that's great. 2-year credential through BRCC or South Louisiana, that's great too. Workforce training through NCCR or other appropriate means to get a high growth, high wage job, just as good. All pathways to prosperity. What's not okay is for kids to walk across the stage, get a diploma, we all chalk it up on our graduation rate, everybody goes home, and no one really knows what's on the other side of that dais for that young man or woman. That's the problem. Jumpstart is the Louisiana's program to have industry, higher education, and high schools come together to provide industry pathways that lead to credentials and high growth, high wage jobs for young people.
And that particular point, I think, is very important. It's credentials that lead to high-wage, high-demand jobs in the region where that student graduates from high school. And he's prepared at that point. In a lot of cases, under the way these programs are being structured regionally in Louisiana, a young man or young woman can leave high school, in some cases, with a 2-year associate degree from the community college. Talk about that aspect of putting those students in a position to have that credential.
The stigma that I talked about career education comes from the idea that, well, that means you just get a high school diploma and then your education ends. We need to be in a place where the education for every young man and woman continues after high school. Now, it may continue when you're pursuing your level 2 credential in carpentry. It may continue when you're pursuing your process technology degree at River Parishes Community College, but your education continues. And that's what Jumpstart does. Jumpstart allows progress toward that career credential. Jumpstart allows progress toward that associate degree. And heck, Jumpstart should be open to students and is open to students who are pursuing TOPS and a bachelor's degree. An industry credential, industry experiences, workplace experiences can be motivating to kids, can help them build relationships and lessons that last a lifetime, and generates economic opportunity.
Obviously, to make this program successful, you have to have the support and engagement of the business community. What's their response been?
The business community has come to the table, and I could think about countless partnerships with business, higher education, and our high schools, saying we're going to give internships, we're going to give apprenticeships, we're going to provide the coursework and the materials and the equipment necessary to have kids become programmers, to have kids become nurses on their way to being a nurse, to have kids become electricians, welders, what have you, in fields that may require, but rarely require, a 4-year bachelor's degree. The brand in our state that has been pervasive for years, rightly, are institutions of higher education, purple and gold, TOPS. But now we're beginning to see kids feeling honored and respected for continuing their education in different type settings. It leads to economic opportunity. It's necessary to assure a future for all graduates, and that's why Jumpstart's so important.
And it really does change lives. We've got about a minute left here, John. I want to ask you this question. What's your ultimate goal for pre-K-12 education in Louisiana, both in the short term and the long term? How big is our potential here?
Well, Tim, we've touched on, I think, the two main pillars when we look across the system. More than 700,000 kids in the public schools of this state, year after year after year, in 64 parishes, countless schools and school systems. When you look at the big picture, I think you want two things. First, from a policy perspective statewide, you want to be able to say, by any measure, Louisiana is competitive. For years, for generations, we've not been competitive. We're showing signs of being competitive. We need to compete. But secondly, when you talk about the child, when you talk about the adolescent, the young man and young woman, every single one of them should leave our system, the pre-K through 12 system, on a trajectory toward the life of their dreams, toward economic opportunity, toward being able to provide for their family right here at home in Louisiana. That's the job of the system. That's what we should achieve.
And we're working toward getting there. Buddy, thanks for the great work you do.
Tim.
Keep up the good work, right?
Thank
the credit
you.
goes to the man who's actually in the arena. That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.